Happy Friday. Let's start with that. Woo! Every week that you survive deserves a pat on the back, folks. It's Friday. I've got the professor with me, Armando Lara, columnist for Sprewell Was Right on Substack. It's an awesome column. You should go check it out, Dub Nation. And on today's show, what we're not going to talk about is Jonathan Kaminga. We're skipping that topic. No Kaminga talk on today's show. Kaminga?
Again?
No, not today. We're talking about Steve Kerr. There's been some revelations in regards to his place in the grand NBA landscape and trying to make sense of the last 3-4 years, because it hasn't made sense. None of this is logical. None of this is rational. So I've got a professor with me. I'm a professor still, technically. I still got one class I'm teaching. And as my field is dying. How's sociology doing, Armando? Is sociology still getting enrollment numbers?
Yeah, at Berkeley, we're one of the fastest growing majors.
Congratulations. All right, I'm glad you're surviving. Journalism is pretty much dead. But we're here. We're talking Steve Kerr. He got interviewed recently. He said some fascinating things. And then Gary Payton, GP2's father, the Hall of Famer, Oakland native. He said something fascinating to me, some mind-blowing stuff. Finally, a comp for Steve Kerr that makes some damn sense. I'm going to explain what I mean next. It's Armando Lara. It's yours truly. It's a golden.
They always find something to nitpick, and that's because there's expectations for us to win. Leave me alone this summer.
Woo! Let's go!
In a minute, I'ma need a sentimental man or woman to pump me up.
Always great news. Friday. Hey now. This is Armando. You are the Warriors boss. Compliments for you right there, brother. Welcome to the Golden Days. You can follow Armando Lara on Threads, which is a burgeoning application. Draymond Green has been very active on there. Your handle is at Mando_man10. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Threads and Instagram at DogWild, on Twitter at Surf Journalist, the program on both platforms at Golden Days Pod. Armando, how you doing, brother? Good to see you.
I'm good, man. On Threads, I got like 10 haters that followed me. I love it. They just, everything I tweet, they got to hate on me. I love it. It's the same.
You know what the funny thing is? Let me know if I'm wrong here in your experience, but I feel like the haters, they all lack a thumbnail, right? So it's just like the egg for the profile picture, and they have like 5 followers. So and I'm endlessly wondering, like, how many of those are burner accounts for the very individuals we're criticizing. Because you never know.
They all love Steve Kerr also, in addition.
Yeah, Steve Kerr's wife once came at me on social media, and that took me. I was kind of like a little taken aback there. Responded very respectfully, but I did push back. I'm like, no, that's not true. I think she was trying to defend. She came at me trying to defend Steve Kerr's personnel decision making in their 2022 title run, defending his decisions with Gary Payton, and I had to push back and be like, I'm really sorry, respectfully, but he benched Gary Payton, GP2, in Game 1 of the NBA Finals when he was ready to go. He didn't even want Gary Payton on the roster that season. In case people forgot, he had to clear waivers, and he was listening to his veterans who all wanted, I think, Avery Bradley that season over Gary Payton. Yep. And Kerr's going to do anything his veterans say and want. So, yeah, it's social media is a shit show. And I think you and I were talking before we started recording about how, I don't know, I'm not putting words in your mouth. I'm going to speak just for myself, but how the world has never felt more tumultuous. Like there's never been more angst in this world. Like people are just fed up with so much of the bullshit. You see institutions falling left and right. And to me personally, I don't think it's a coincidence that as social media continues to rise, we're seeing this dissension. And this unhappiness, if you will, this anxiety that's permeating everywhere. It's madness. Yeah, social media is insane, dude. I don't think it's a tool for good. I know there's good things that come from it, but for me personally, I see a lot more bad. That's just me. I do love the information, though. It is entertaining. What do you think about my sentiments there, Rafas, before we revert back to Warriors talk?
Just to bring it back to the NBA, I think there's angst in front offices and ownership right now. You have basically 4 out of the 5 premier franchises got sold at $10 billion valuations or whatever, and ratings are down. I think like it's like buying high on a house. So the NBA is going to be in trouble. I think there's a lot of angst going on in NBA circles right now.
Yeah, there is. And look, and the part of this too, and this has nothing to do with the technology companies. This has nothing to do with the trolls. I think Denzel Washington was attributed some years ago talking about the actor. Yeah. And he says a lot of wise things. And he was attributed saying that human beings, there's only so much information we can handle. And Armando, you and I grew up without an internet. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But from my experience, there was no internet until I was about 17, 18, I think. And then social media didn't come for like another 15 years after that in terms of like an explosion. It's a societal impact. So I grew up like needing to find information in encyclopedias, like having to use those really old school like projector machines, going through old like newspaper slides. Like it used to be very difficult to get info. It was almost like a commodity even in and of itself. But as a result of that, because information wasn't literally available at our hands to tell us everything, we didn't obsess about it. And we went outside and we did things that didn't involve staring at a screen, constantly learning. There's also the sad part, which is that a lot of this information isn't even valid or true. It's just content. But the point is, our brains are just overloaded, man. There's just too much. I don't know. Witnessing the change from no internet to the society we're in now, and especially with the smartphones have been a whole other game changer. I can understand why there is this level of just unhappiness in this world. I feel it. I don't mean to like divert our conversation to societal issues, but I feel it. If you're out there feeling the same, and Armando, please, if you have any thoughts on this, lame talk, I'm going to change from in just a second.
I mean, there's a lot going on right now with the quote unquote male loneliness epidemic. And like seriously, get off, like instead of just sitting on the couch on your phone on a Friday night texting about the Warriors to your buddy, like go meet up with them to talk about the Warriors in person. Like you can't duplicate that feeling in your gut when you're in person with people to like.
Absolutely. And especially if you're like young, like if you're watching this and you're in your 20s, you're a teen, even if you're in your like early 30s, yeah, don't be a hermit. This is not the time in your life to just sit at home and do nothing. If you're a Warriors fan, even just go to the city, like the Ball Hall is set up and the Thrive City set up for the Valkyries this summer. I've been talking about this. It's awesome. I mean, San Francisco weather this time of year is superb. Get out there and watch a Valkyries game from the outside, socialize, mingle, do something, man. Just focus on the mental health because these are trying times. They are. Yeah.
Make some time for it. Go to the bar and argue if who's the 11th and 12th best player of all time. That's fun.
Exactly. And we're going to start our show here with I mentioned Gary Payton, his name, more specifically GP2. Gary Payton Sr. I want to start with this clip because it was mind-blowing seeing this. And I posted this on Twitter and I gave a shout out to the individual who first led me on to this. I don't know what the interview is from. I think this was taken from the Big Three. This is the 3-on-3 basketball league that takes place in the offseason of the NBA. Rick Barry was a coach, and sadly he got supplanted this upcoming season because of structural changes to the league. But the point is, the Big Three's been around for a few years now. It's Ice Cube's association. It is growing. Michael Beasley and Chris Haynes host a podcast and talk show that's part of the Big Three. And I think that's where this clip came from. I know Gary Payton was a coach in the Big Three, and maybe that's why he was specifically available for this. But again, I'm saying all this because I don't really know what this is from. That's my guess. But Gary Payton brought up an early part of his career when he played for the Seattle Supersonics. And I believe his first coach there was Casey Jones. Casey Jones, and his name is going to be very pertinent here because we just found potentially the perfect comp to Steve Kerr in terms of another coach, another former player in the NBA who has a very similar background to Steve Kerr in terms of both winning championships as a player and then as a coach leading a dynasty, in his case being the Boston Celtics. They won 3 championships with the team that was led by the legend himself, Larry Bird, who, side note, if you never watched him play growing up, you did miss out, dude. He was something very special. I know this is a comment a lot of people will probably shrug at, give quizzical looks at me for, but I believe this fervently. If we are building a team from scratch and one of the positions you're debating Larry Bird or LeBron James, I'm putting Larry Bird on my team over LeBron James. And you might think I'm crazy, but if you watched Larry Bird play, it was a career cut short by back injuries, and the three-point a shot was not a part of the fabric of the NBA at that point, meaning like the analytics individuals had not picked up on the fact yet that shooting a gigantic amount of three-point shots is beneficial to you. This realization that most players can actually shoot 40-45% from three had not been realized yet in the NBA. I say all that because Larry Bird in his career made less threes than Draymond Green. It was just different times. Larry Legend was a legend. He was a badass basketball player. And that team also had Kevin McHale, who Charles Barkley calls the greatest power forward he's ever seen. And I'm sure people will push back on that. The Chief, Robert Parrish, former Golden State Warrior, Dennis Johnson, Danny Ainge. My point is that was a legendary team. 80s basketball, Lakers Celtics was a show. They called that Showtime for a damn good reason. And it led to the explosion of modern NBA basketball. Casey Jones was the head coach for that team. And he was Gary Payton's coach originally. And Gary Payton in this clip explains why it was not a good idea to have Casey Jones as his head coach. And when you hear the reasons, it's going to sound awfully familiar. Here is Gary Payton.
So you're playing for the Supersonics. The coach is Casey Jones. He won 11 out of 12 NBA championships, 8 as a player, 3 as a coach. But I guess you went to the owner and said that you want a new coach?
When you got a coach who has won 8 championships as a player, 3 as a coach, you ask why. The reason why is because the Boston Celtics had great teams. And he coached Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, Danny Ainge. So you didn't have to have young players when that was when the generation was changing in basketball in the NBA. You didn't have all old school Magic Johnson, Kareem, all that stuff where you could just go and sit down and Magic would take over the game or Bird here. And we didn't know how to play the game. So you had to teach us the game. And when you got to teach us the game, it's a different story. It was nothing against Casey Jones. It was just that we needed a coach that can guide us. And he wasn't that type of coach to guide us.
And again, awful lot of parallels between what you just heard Gary Payton describe with Casey Jones and the fact that he described the Sonics needing a coach who was actually hands-on, who was a teacher, right? Who guided the players, not someone who kind of just sat back and just let things happen, with his superstar players. Very reminiscent to the current Golden State Warriors. We have our cop. Casey Jones was what Steve Kerr is now. Armando Lara, when you saw that clip, what was going through your mind when you first experienced that crazy attribution?
Man, I actually, there's not much that doesn't sneak by me in NBA history, but I didn't know to what extent of a winner Casey Jones was.
Same.
And I like you pulling this up because it helps you get back into what it was like in that moment. Like, he was perceived as a major winner, probably as big of a winner as Steve Kerr is now.
Yes.
Like at that level.
Yes.
And it's only now in retrospect, nobody says his name. No one worries about him. Someone like me can forget about him. And I'm happy to talk about it, but the same thing happened to Phil Jackson, some kind of big winner that nobody talks about no more. And you think anybody in 20 years is going to be talking about Steve Kerr winning all these titles? Nope, nobody's going to care who the coach is, just like they haven't with these people. And my mind went to all the arguments I've had with pro Kerr people. Like, you criticize like Kerr doesn't innovate, and you've made this point about he doesn't support great young players developing. Like, and it's like he is not the right man for that job. Like the league caught up with his system. He hasn't continued to evolve. It's like, no. 11 championships. He's a god. Like, what are you talking about? Don't ever say anything negative. And, I think you'll see in a minute, even he admits it. So as for a clip you have later, but this is really nice find by you, Si.
Well, and it was a nice find, but again, on Twitter, I gave props to the handle that first made me aware. I don't know what that clip is from. I also was not aware that Casey Jones is a former 11-time champion. And the reason why it's so important to learn about Casey Jones and the championships he won as a player. I knew he was a 3-time champion as a head coach with the Celtics, but no one, when we're talking about all-time great head coaches, and Casey Jones, I think is a Hall of Famer, and justifiably so. But no one is talking about Casey Jones as this legendary head coach, as an innovator, as someone who you're going to trust with big decisions. And again, when he left the Celtics, he went to the Sonics, and Gary Payton and company quickly learned he's not the right fit because they were a young team who needed guidance, who needed actual coaching, and not just someone to manage things when the talent is already settled.
Yep.
So for the folks out there who say Steve Kerr's won 9 championships, all you have to do to push back is say Casey Jones has 11 championships. And the reason why it's so pertinent is because Casey Jones, the 8 championships he won as a player, they didn't win because of him. They won because that was Bill Russell's greatness behind the Boston Celtics, right? Like Casey Jones was one of the players alongside Don Nelson and role players like that. He was not a Havlicek level player. So Casey Jones, role player for 8 championships. Casey Jones, head coach for a stacked Boston Celtics team in the 80s, wins 3 championships with them. You could argue that they underperformed. 3 might be a low number. I mean, that Boston Celtics team was again deep, talented, but they also came across the LA Lakers, and this is where you could also draw parallels with the modern era, where you compare Steph and LeBron and that rivalry between the two. But yeah, Casey Jones, and then we're gonna play these clips that add to this, right? Boy, first of all, what is Bruce Morrow talking about here in terms of Bruce Morrow's bringing race into this, saying that because he's black, they're not going to talk about him as a legendary coach. Well, I'm not going to touch that, except to say I don't agree at all. If anyone's thinking like that, shame on you. Like, that's just pathetically, despicably racist. I'm not thinking like that at all. And Bruce, it's cynical take, and we'll agree to disagree there. Armando, any thoughts on that? Or I mean,
no, I see what I think we were having a discussion in the chat because I said Kerr's not going to be remembered for the championships, and I think Bruce is pointing out that race might have something to do with that, and that I do agree with. Kerr might actually be remembered in a way that Casey Jones was not, and that might have to do with for image.
Interesting. Well, that could be. Well, again, and Casey Jones, his playing days were so far back that you really got to be an old timer to remember him. No disrespect to my dear friend Rick Barry, who played against him in that era, but it's that's not the demographic, the 70 to 80-year-olds that that I think most media entities are targeting. No disrespect to the older crowd. I do value you. I'm a strong anti-ageist, if that means anything. With all that said, Casey Jones, 11-time champion, Steve Kerr, 9-time champion, awfully close backgrounds. In neither instance, I think, are you going to sit here and say that because of that person, this organization achieved the greatness they did. And adding to that is Steve Kerr and the media tour he's been on, where he's literally, you could, and again, correct, push back if you want, this is my opinion, but he wasn't doing interviews like these last year. I don't remember him doing this many interviews 2 years ago. He's worried about his legacy. He's worried about the fact that this Jonathan Kaminga thing blew up in his face. Armando, your hands up. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think he did something similar last year or 2 years ago when he did a couple interviews and he was like, we maxed the roster. Remember he said that phrase? It was after the season, they didn't make the play-in or something like that, and it was like, we did the most we could. We maxed the roster. And I thought that was the beginning of his damage control in this loser ball era.
Well, and how can you say that when you literally were benching your third leading scorer? People forget that Jonathan Kaminga in the 2024-2025 season was the Golden State Warriors' third leading scorer. And let's not pretend the Warriors were some juggernaut offensively, meaning let's not pretend they didn't need his points when it mattered most. Yet Steve Kerr just didn't think it was a fit. And now he's on these press tours. Anybody who's asking him to do an interview, he's happily obliging. This one had right. Armando, anything you want to add to that, Armando? I'm sorry, I don't mean to dominate this discussion here. I'm trying to see what's going on in the chat. Okay. And anyways, he did an interview with Shane Battier, who, in case you're unfamiliar, played for Duke, played in the NBA for a while. I remember him mostly with the Memphis Grizzlies. Had a decent career. He's like basically a role player from beginning to end, wherever he went. He's got a podcast. Who doesn't? And Steve Kerr went on it because those two undoubtedly know each other. And he revealed a couple of very interesting things. I'm going to start with the short clip, which is Steve Kerr basically showing the world that he does have self-awareness. Thank goodness. That's an attribute not every individual has. Where he basically just admits that without Stephen Curry, he doesn't have much. So props to Steve Kerr for being aware of that, for saying the obvious. And here's Steve Kerr explaining why he's still coaching because of Mr. Wardell, Stephen Curry.
If I didn't have Steph, I would have been like every other NBA coach and lasted a few years and then, gone somewhere else and coached somewhere else. So I'm incredibly lucky to have this partnership with Steph, and he provides this stability and continuity with the organization that just makes everybody's job easier. If I didn't have Steph, I would have.
And there you go. So again, stating the obvious that he needed Steph to survive, that without Steph, he still wouldn't be coaching. And Rick Barry the other day, it was a very subtle thing he said that I thought was very important for these discussions, which is when you're a coach, and Rick was alluding to his experience coaching the CBA and he coached somewhere else too, I forgot, but how one of the first things he did as a coach was seek out the veterans and get their approval and earn their trust. And that's exactly what Steve Kerr did from the get-go. He earned Stephen Curry's trust. Look, he certainly elevated the team to a championship level. They were close to that, but they were not champions before he got there. I'm not pretending that he didn't play a part in all this. I'm also just saying 12 years later from when he first took over, times have changed, and what he's been doing the last few years is egregious. It's the lack of accountability is where I personally take massive umbrage with. And, again, he everything with him is Steph, ride or die. I just wish Joe Lacob wasn't this overboard with trying to make Stephen Curry happy, which includes keeping his head coach. Armando, your thoughts on this brief attribution?
Dude, when I saw this, like everything that the 40% of us in Warriors fandom have been saying about this coach and this loser 3-guard lineup, loser motion offense, Lee caught up to it in pace and threes, like everything we've been saying, not develop the young people, not innovate in any way to actually take advantage of an attack wing, hyper athletic attack, apex predator wing, and saying he can't fit with the greatest shooter of all time. Like, think about that for 5 seconds. Like, everything we've been saying, this dude will just go online and just admit it. He'll just literally be telling you what the critics are saying. And, Cy,
with a shrug, with a,
yeah, yes.
Well,
and so my buddy sent me this video clip on YouTube. It was a military science expert, and it was about how arrogance can destroy armies.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
Okay, so my comp, you put out Casey Jones. My comp for Steve Kerr is in 1893 in the British Navy, Lord Vice Admiral George Tyrion. Okay, this is a guy that is famous for how he succeeded early in his career, got all kinds of victories, and then the Navy started going soft, right? And they started just blindly obeying him. No one was telling him no, and he would do things exactly like this, where he would say, the job of you guys is to not just take my commands. You need to question my leadership. You need to innovate. And then he would fire anybody that questioned his commands.
Oh no!
And anyways, I'm going on and on.
Sounds like a certain president that we have now.
This is like a known thing in leadership roles. You can read about this stuff in books and organizational leadership. But like one person can get too much power, and arrogance can lead the whole organization astray. And one of the strategies is to kind of act like this, where you admit your own faults in front of publicly like this. It's like an actual strategy. Yeah,
and there's a second clip we're going to play, which adds a lot more. Just listen for yourself, and then we'll talk about it. Steve Kerr was not done, is what I'm trying to say. In this clip, which is far longer and more detailed, he talks about his struggles. And dude, this one to me is far more egregious than the Stephen Curry one you just heard, because in this clip, you're basically going to learn why players don't develop under him. It's insane. And yet he's just candidly revealing this. He'll, again, no accountability because Lacob trusts him. Steph trusts him. So he's just safe. He's literally sitting in an ivory tower, just telling people, F off, I'm in power. I don't care what you think. And no one's doing a thing about it. It's madness. Here's the attribution I'm referring to. This is Stephen Curry. I'm sorry, not Stephen Curry. Steve Kerr talking about how times have changed when it comes to young players in the NBA. It reveals a lot. Oh, shoot. Hold on. I had it muted. I apologize. Okay, here's Kerr again.
I just think it's really important to collaborate with your staff and to encourage the young coaches to really bring a lot of ideas to the table. I really lean on my younger coaches. One of the ways the league is so different now is that we're now a developmental league. You know, when you came into the league, when I was in the league, we were already developed. You played for Coach K for 4 years. I played for Lute Olson for 4 years. We were ready. And the other part that was different was the schedule was different. So we'd have like 3 games in 4 nights. Then you'd have 4 days off. So you'd have 2 great practices. Now the schedule is basically you play every other day all year long. We don't practice anymore. So we have to develop these 19-year-old kids who are coming into the league without much practice time. That has meant an entirely revamped kind of development program. And frankly, I'm not great with it. Like, I'm an older coach. I'm a disciple of Phil and Pop. And so I lean on the young guys to really install great development drills, decision-making stuff, things that I never did or knew how to teach. But the key is to figure that out and let the people who can do those things, let them do it and empower them. And I think that's how you progress.
So keep in mind, Steve Kerr is basically saying that from the time he played to the modern era, the NBA's changed and that it used to have players come in ready, right? So what Kerr is saying here, and sorry for translating what seems obvious, but I feel it's needed. He's basically saying that in his era of playing, that the college coaches did all the hard work. And so the college coaches were the ones actually putting in time, teaching, guiding, developing. And then when they came to the NBA, they were polished. They were ready. So I think what he's insinuating is that NBA coaches once upon a time, the successful ones, were lazy pieces of shit who just sat back and their entire job was making sure that the players didn't beat up each other. Right? Like, I think that the job of an NBA coach that Steve Kerr thinks what is how it was done versus how it's done now is used to just be able to sit back and just manage things. And now, oh no, you have to actually coach. You have to actually teach. You have to actually communicate with these youngsters who are raw and undeveloped. And he can't do it himself. He's literally admitting, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to talk to these people. And so he's delegating these responsibilities to his assistants, who, side note, once upon a time, not that long ago, there was only one assistant in the NBA. And that's not, again, I was alive when that, and again, I'm kind of old. I'm getting older, so maybe that's not saying much, but there was a time that even, I don't know if I can remember it, but they captured it beautifully in that Lakers Celtics show that was on HBO for a couple seasons, where NBA coaches used to have just one assistant. Like, what would Steve Kerr do if he didn't have an army, like 3 benches back of assistants to provide the development that he apparently can't do? What are the Warriors paying this guy $18 million a year for? Just to make Stephen Curry feel good? Like, is this what the reality that we're living in now, is that Steve Kerr is just there to basically coddle Stephen Curry? This is insane to me that he, like, openly has admitted here what I've been complaining about for 2-3 years. Madness, Armando. Your thoughts on this? Because I'm livid. I'm incensed. I cannot believe that we're hearing these words, and the fact that probably half of Dub Nation is just going to be okay with it. Your thoughts,
dude? Is it even true what he's saying, that these 18, 19-year-olds need coaching development? Is that actually true? Like that? So what I'm saying is he's putting this out there as a way to say that these guys aren't ready, when I disagree with that whole premise from the get-go. Like, I've been on this Moses Moody, Jonathan Kaminga, play the athletes from day one, and it's winning time. Like, Jonathan Kaminga, Moses Moody, even I would say Trace Jackson Davis have played long stretches of winning basketball when they get played alongside the best players in big-time minutes and not being pulled out with any simple mistake. It's not even like, he's putting that out there to be like, see, like, I can't play them because I don't have the skills to develop them. That's a bunch of crock of bullshit. And
it's insane.
Like, do you really think Steve Kerr's in the lab this summer, like developing a new offense? I mean, he's on record in one of his interviews after the season saying he doesn't need to change a thing about the offense. He doesn't need to change a thing about the defense. Do you really think he's in the lab like the way Popovich did? Every summer he would meet with the staff and they would say, what are we doing wrong? How are we going to take advantage? How are we going to change our system to take advantage of this system? They changed it 3 times. They went from Duncan Robinson to Tony Parker to Manu Ginobili to Kawhi Leonard. They changed that stuff 3 times. Do you really think they're doing that? And one more thing I want to say about this, because it's got me riled up, man. He mentioned that he relies on his young assistants. They just hired his son. Steve Kerr has on his assistant coaches his best friend and his son. Do you know how outrageous that is as an organization?
I do.
Like you're telling me that a young player might have a problem with their role, or might need an adjustment, or might need something to say, and they got this young kid yelling at them who's never done a thing, and it's the coach's son? Like, do you know where the communication is going to break down? Like, it just talk about, like, yes, man, they bring in all these desperate coaches that are just trying to hang on into the league and get another job, from Mike Brown to Terry Stotts. They're trying to break through. Ain't nobody telling Kerr no. Like, for those of you who have been in bad boss situations, this is exactly what it is. Like, that happens all the time. That's why I brought up that Admiral thing. Like, people in leadership positions get there and they hold on to power and crowd out others. Like, it's not like a thing that is just Steve Kerr doing. It's happening.
In a lot of places, you're absolutely right. Bill Belichick, I think, was one of the perfect examples of a head coach who let ego, sadly, and arrogance overtake what was a phenomenal run and ruin the final years of his tenure. Not to mention, Tom Brady reminded the world yet again that the player is far more important than the coach. But again, unfortunately for the Warriors, it's a very complicated situation because it's Stephen Curry's guy, right? And this leads to, well, first of all, real fast, going back to the assistant thing. This was a massive gripe of mine in 2023, the year after. There was, I think, a year, correct me if I'm wrong. Was it 2023 when Kenny Atkinson left? Oh no, or was Kenny always there? I'm just trying to bring up the fact that Bruce Frazier who is Steve Kerr's buddy, right? They played together at Arizona, and they became best friends when they were on that team. Bruce Frazier, after that, I think was like a stunt coordinator in Hollywood, or like he had nothing to do with basketball after that until Steve Kerr became the GM of the Suns, and then hired Bruce Frazier, I think, to be like an assistant coach for like a year or two. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember the facts exactly, but you get the gist. And then Steve Kerr gets blown out of Phoenix because, again, he's not a personnel guy. He's admitted repeatedly that he's not a good GM. And then Bruce Frazier was pushed out along with Kerr. And then Bruce Frazier was out of basketball again until 2014-15 when Steve Kerr became head coach of the Warriors and Bruce Frazier was immediately brought back as an assistant. And look, Bruce is a nice guy. And him and I, off the record, we've talked about surfing a lot. And he's told me great stories about him and Kerr and Judd Bushler. And they go down to Baja. They have some compound down there that they go every summer to just go surf and chill and just do, boy things, guy things. But as a basketball coach in if I remember correctly, it was 2023 where Kenny Atkinson was sitting on one side of Kerr and Bruce Frazier was sitting on the other side of Kerr. And until that moment, Bruce Frazier was always known as the guy that just got Stephen Curry's rebounds during his shoot-arounds and was having one-on-ones with him, right? That was what he was notorious for, was just being Stephen Curry's warm-up buddy. And suddenly he's like a top assistant next to Steve Kerr. And in that attribution, you learn how reliant Kerr is on his assistants when it comes to the youth. And I believe this was the same season, or maybe it was the season after. But I mean, when you look back and you think to Anthony Lamb stealing Jonathan Kaminga's minutes, when you look back and think to Ty Jerome stealing Moses Moody's minutes, when you think back to guys like JaMychal Green stealing Jonathan Kaminga's minutes, this past season, GP2 stealing Jonathan Kaminga's minutes, it's the handling of the youth is abysmal. And I know this has turned into an absolute just shit on Steve Kerr show, but when you hear these things, I don't know how you could not. Like, why is this guy getting a pass? I saw someone in the chat say, like, why are you like piling on Steve Kerr so hard? It's because no other show does. We're it. Like if there was a balance here, if there was an actual level of fair accountability, I would not focus on him. But I don't see anyone else criticizing him. If anything, all I see from everyone else in this pathetic media industry here in the San Francisco Bay Area, it's just subservience. It's just like worship. It's just like idolizing this guy, like deference to him. It's insanity, man. He's a human being. He's a flawed human being. He's entrenched himself in terms of trust with Stephen Curry. He bailed Draymond Green out of that Jordan Poole situation. So Draymond feels this loyalty to him more than ever, besides the 4 titles. But look, man, this guy, and maybe this goes back to Joe Lacob, because if your idea was 2 timelines, right? If your idea was we're going to try to extend this dynasty in the only way possible, which is a 2 timeline approach, and it's been done twice. The 49ers did it, where they moved on from Joe Montana, and Steve Young extended the dynasty, and it went 18 years, nearly 20. It was unbelievable. Eddie D always replaced players sooner than later, before they peaked as athletes. Ronnie Lott, Roger Craig, they were bounced way early in their careers, relatively speaking. You look at the San Antonio Spurs, they won that 5th championship because Greg Popovich embraced Kawhi Leonard as the team's best player, and he won Finals MVP in 2014 for damn good reason. My point is, that's the only way, in terms of evidence, in terms of actually seeing how it's done, it's the only way to extend a dynasty. And so when Joe Lacob decided we're going to do a 2 timeline thing here, largely because the Warriors were the worst team in the NBA in 2020, so you ended up with the number 2 pick in one of the worst drafts ever, and that's just bad luck dealt to the Warriors that season. But nonetheless, the idea made sense, at least to me, that he had this 2 timeline approach, that he was going to try to extend this run and pass a torch to the next generation, which in this case was originally going to be James Wiseman. That was a massive flail. And then Jonathan Kaminga and Moses Moody still to be determined. But for him to entrust Steve Kerr to manage a 2 timeline thing, that's where this falls a little bit on Joe Lacob too. Actually, not a little bit, a lot. You should be very aware that your head coach does not have the mentality, does not have the fortitude to handle a 2 timeline approach, because he clearly is not invested in any of these young players. He's just, his entire modus operatus is, I'm going to sit back and make sure things are copacetic. He's a great, I feel like his job in his mind is mostly just to make sure chemistry feels good. And sadly, even in that department, he's failed, because right now, Jonathan Kaminga, their 3rd leading scorer from a year ago, is still not signed, and that's holding up every other front office decision. We've seen the way Moses Moody's been handled. I mean, people forget Lindy Waters was starting over him last year. Mike Dunleavy Jr. had to trade Lindy Waters for Moses Moody to get a run. And there's some crazy stat out there, side note, though. When Moses Moody starts, the Warriors, I think, are like 23-7, 25-5. There's some crazy stat out there when it went with pertaining to Moody as a starter. And it's just crazy, man. It's mismanagement is what we're seeing now in these final years of a Warriors dynasty. And this is where we are. And I'm not feeling good about this season. I don't think you are either, right?
This is, I've been on this show a bunch of times talking X's and O's and what's wrong with the motion offense and the way teams are defending it. Easily, it's the most predictable offense in the league now. Everybody knows what's coming. And I guess the piece I want to add now is last year, the original sin was not installing a pick and roll option with Wiggins and Kaminga as ball handlers alongside, save Steph Curry's legs for the 4th quarter instead of relying on him to bail you out. When I think back to the championship runs in the 2010s, it actually wasn't find Steph Curry at all costs. It actually wasn't play 4 connectors to try to get Steph Curry as a shot. It was hit the open man.
Yeah.
So what happened to that? And I think now it's you're not allowed to shoot. Don't look. If you shoot this shot, out the game. If you miss this shot and you're not Steph Curry, out the game. So we're talking about managing personalities, just throwing lineups out there against the wall, and if it doesn't work, changing it up. That's the level of coaching that we're at. I mean, he's on record saying that. That's not just me saying that.
He is. He's literally on record saying, sometimes I throw crap against the wall and I see what sticks. I think that's the line.
They got these guys that he likes, guys that could dribble and shoot, supposedly. Although the guys he thinks that are good shooters are not good shooters when it counts. And in general, frankly, I'm not going to name names that start with a P, but those championship runs had defenders on the floor.
It did.
If you're playing 3 guards, sometimes 4 at all times, when Moses Moody's getting played at power forward, there's a reason he got injured and he was overmatched and his legs were not allowing him to knock down threes. But if you're playing 3 guards like that, you cannot defend. There's a reason why every team is shooting it's 5 or 10% better 3-pointers against the Warriors for 3 years now. Because you got small guys closing out. Everybody's comfortable. Nobody gives a shit if Podziemski's guarding you. It's easy street. Do you know what it's like to play ball against a little kid guarding you? You're not worried about nothing. You're comfortable. It doesn't matter. He's in the right place. He looks like he's guarding you. It don't matter. It's easy street. You're comfortable. That's what it's like playing the Warriors when you're being guarded by these guards, and the only person out there is Draymond. And I just think they're in this. We innovated. We won in 2022 playing this way. We're just got to capture magic in a bottle. We don't got to do nothing. The vibes just got to be right. He's a vibes guy. Steph Curry's thinking this way. Where are they in the lab to take it to the next level, to develop the new wrinkle? I mean, there's so many things you could do with an apex predator wing like Kaminga playing alongside Jimmy Butler with Steph Curry coming around the backside of that. We're not with that kind of leadership. You just need to admit it as a Warriors fan. This season is not looking good to me, and I'm happy to talk about that, but I'm not optimistic.
Oh, I'm right with you, and I think a huge part of it is the fact that, sadly, and again, I highlighted this chat here from degenerate_dad. Funny handle. I hope in reality you're not a degenerate dad and your kids aren't suffering. Nonetheless, degenerate dad wrote that Steve Kerr got the Bill Belichick card. He'll always have control and the ownership in his corner. Also believes he has Steph in his corner. So we're kind of stuck with him till Curry moves on. And sadly, degenerate dad, I think you're right. And it begs the question, Armando, that I'm going to ask you. Is it time? Like, should I just give up on hating? I mean, I don't mean to say hate. I don't. That's not what my intention is. But should I stop criticizing Kerr? Is what I'm trying to say. Is it a fruitless effort to keep calling out all of the inadequacies of this man? Given he's likely not going to go anywhere. Like it's a losing battle. Your thoughts?
No, I think, but just the opposite. You need to expand that criticism onto Steph Curry. And like you're bringing up this point about Lacob enabling it. Steph Curry has been wrong about many personnel decisions in the past. And he was wrong about a coach's decision back in 2014, 2015. Like, this is now personal for them. It ain't business, right? It ain't business. It's about like, we did this together. We want to go down with the ship together. This is all commitment. My question for Warriors fans now, and I've started to think this way because I've seen Kobe go down this route too. Like, is he really trying to get that fifth championship ring? Is it really about that? Like, is he doing what it takes in the offseason to get defenders on the floor? I'm actually, it's a legit question. Like, yeah, are you okay playing this loser ball, playing three guards, playing with people who don't defend, playing guys out of position? Are you actually okay with that? Like, Tim Duncan allowed usage to be taken away from him. Kobe did not. Their end of their careers went in different directions. Players adjust in the last stage of the career. So is Steph Curry going to do that, or are they going to keep trying to win the same, even not even the same way, a more exaggerated version of the way they won, a more heliocentric version of the way they won? I think his legacy will take a hit off these last 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah, and the Stephen Curry part of it, and I do see some corners and circles of media bringing his name up sometimes in terms of, like just last season, when Kruger and I were doing regular dual streams, and I think Damon Bruce would bring that up every once in a while too. Like the idea of moving on from Steph. Like I look in the same way that a lot of people like Lucky Trey, for example, in the chat, he's the one who thinks, or she, I don't know your gender, I apologize, saying it's obvious hate. I don't think you understand what the word hate truly means. The way I critique Kerr would be called just another Tuesday on the East Coast. There's just the media seem the barrier is very soft. He's the head coach of a basketball team, a professional NBA team. This is par for the course, man. Like, he's susceptible to criticism. He's a public figure. He's the guy who's supposed to, in the same way that he gets credit for winning, should get some blame for losing. And in this case, I think he deserves a lot of blame because he's almost directly responsible for failing to integrate these young players. And side note, it isn't that difficult to develop. It isn't that difficult to coach. It isn't that difficult to try and simply connect with these young people. Communicate with them. Just talk with them. Just take 5-10 minutes out of your life just to hang out with these people. Get to know them. Try and understand their perspective. I don't see any evidence of that. And believe me, I talk to people behind the scenes. I do my best to gather as much information as possible so I can present a clear picture of what's going on behind the scenes. I can tell you this with certainty. Steve Kerr and Jonathan Kaminga are not buddies. Like, they're not talking or hanging out. Same goes for Kerr and Draymond. Steve Kerr, I think the only person Steve Kerr spends real time with is Steph. And even that's very limited, simply because Stephen Curry is so busy that I don't know if Steph just has the time and the brain power to worry about GM responsibilities, right? I think that's why he's so standoffish, or why he's so passive when it comes to these situations. He's got a full plate. Like in his mind, he's probably thinking, this is not my job. Like, I'm not supposed to worry about this. Like, Other people are supposed to deal with helping me. And now it's like, and that's where, like, I get it in terms of people wanting to maybe, put a little blame on his plate. But it's just, dude, I mean, he's done so much already and he's got so much to worry about himself. I hear you, though. I get all sides of this, but it's just, God damn it, man. Like, at a bare minimum, and this at a fundamental level, when it comes to making these players better, these young players, Jonathan Kaminga, Moses Moody, and we could bring up other pieces like James Wiseman. The Jordan Poole thing fell completely apart. Just actually develop a relationship with these people. But Steve Kerr's not doing that. He's fortified with the veterans. He's going down with that ship, and that's the decision he's made. And that's why I call him obtuse. It's why I have a lot of skepticism about him as the head coach in 2025 of the Warriors. And God damn, he's even just admitting it publicly now. I guess respect for that. I don't know what the hell you'd call that, but it's wild, man. He's just literally admitting to the world everything we've been saying on the show for the last 2 years and has no apologies for it, has no remorse, is just doubling down. It's insane. Anyways.
Dude, on the Plus Minus podcast a couple days ago, they were talking that they were elucidating what the coach's mindset is going into the season. And, to me, it's breaking news. You can read between the lines. I think Kawakami said, quote, I've been told about what they're thinking about minutes distribution and where they could go. He said, I've been told that they put a lot of stock. If you have been following Kawakami, it's Steve Kerr. They put a lot of stock in the fact that they won their toughest games without Kaminga. That in the DNP, they won the play-in game against Memphis, and they went 19-2.
Bullshit.
And they won the toughest games against the Rockets. And so, like, keep that in mind. We're not going to guarantee, we're not going to build, basically saying they're not going into next year building a system that is going to take advantage of Jonathan Kaminga alongside the best players for 30 minutes a game. Like, if that, he said, if that happens to work out because of injury or whatever, then that's all good. That's great. But we're not going to plan for it. We're not going to develop and innovate a system to integrate those folks. And to me, to all the supporters at the 11 ring truthers, we
You mean nine, right?
Not, oh yeah.
Casey Jones had 11, two more.
Right. Phil Jackson, the other disgraced coach, had 11 rings.
13. Nobody count his two as a player.
Right. Nobody cares about him or talks about him at all. Totally disgraced. And there's a whole nother read to last year. Those teams they went 19-2 against or whatever, that was tank nation. Okay, that was just tanking. This whole bit where they were in playoff mode for 3 months, and maybe next year they don't need to be in playoff mode for 3 months. Wrong. Clippers were in playoff mode, so were the Nuggets. All these teams were hustling to make the playoffs at the end of the season. That's going to be the case next year. Do you really think Jimmy Butler, Mr. Cruise Control, is going to bust his ass for 82 games? We just paid $60 million for somebody who has not played very hard in the regular season for 5 years. It is 5 years later. To think that they're not going to be, they got 15 back-to-backs. How many of those is Steph Curry going to play in? Do you really think
they're smart?
We're going to be going into the last end of the season where they're solidly the 3rd seed? I don't think so. So it's going sideways, and the coach's mindset, his evaluation of last year, thinking they actually did good at the end of last year, is all wrong. We lost the Spurs game with Kaminga minimized. We lost the Clippers game with Kaminga DNP'd. And meanwhile, that's after Kaminga dropped 32 in the previous Clippers game to get Zubac off the floor. Zubac could not guard Kaminga. And then we were down in the Memphis game, big time. Memphis was going to win that game until Ja twisted his ankle. He literally was taking pills in the hallway. And then we went to 7 games with a 35 and 37-year-old playing 40 minutes a night and got injured as a result. That's what we got from the Kerr motion offense 3-guard system that throws shit at the wall. Okay, yeah.
I'm never gonna I will never forgive Kerr for that 3-game stretch where the Warriors beat the Grizzlies, who at that time were I think the 2 seed, and then they plummeted soon after that. They beat the Nuggets for the first time in almost 3 years, and then they beat the Lakers. And Kaminga was pivotal in that stretch. That was the moment that I saw a team that was gonna win a championship. And then what does Steve Kerr do the very next game? Side note, GP2 was injured for that stretch, right? That was a friendly reminder to me as well. You don't need GP2 on this team. Completely unnecessary part of this roster. And I'm sorry if you interpret that as hate, but they won those games without him. GP2 comes back. What's the first thing Kerr does? Bumps Kaminga down in the rotation and gives GP2 his minutes. Someone the other day said it best. All you have to do is just give Kaminga GP2's minutes. All these issues are gone. It's literally that simple, but not to Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr makes simple things complicated. And then anyway, we could do this forever.
Dude,
yeah.
People, I love one thing you always say is like, okay, if you're criticizing, come up with an alternative. To me, it's easy. This is a championship roster that's about to win 30 games. Like that's the way I see it. It's a championship roster that is about to win 30 games. Just play people in their position.
Mm-hmm.
Like let Pods play point guard for 18 minutes a game. Let Moses Moody play 25 to 30 minutes at shooting guard. Let Jonathan Kaminga play 30 minutes at small forward. Put Jimmy Butler at the guard position where he's played his whole life. He ain't no power forward.
He's not a 4. Yeah,
so,
unless you're Steve Kerr. Unless you're Steve Kerr, then it's insanity, brother. It's absolute insanity. And literally, you're a professor. I'm a professor. Being a professor, Armando, I don't know if you agree with this sentiment, changed my outlook tremendously when it comes to individuals in leadership positions. I've also coached, but the lesson when I was a youth basketball, and I coached youth basketball, and so I'm not going to pretend like I coached men, but I did teach men and women. And one thing that experience taught me, and has stuck with me forever, well, it taught me a lot of things actually, but when it comes to leadership, is everyone's different. So you can't approach any scenario where you're an authority figure and there's people below you with broad strokes, right? Like you can't just have one rule for everyone to follow. In the year 2025, that shit don't work. You have to recognize every individual and try to adapt to the situation, right? And I don't see that with Kerr, right? To him, it's just every player is a figure. It's like, okay, Kaminga, tonight, I think you're good 15 minutes. Next game, I think you're good for 25 minutes. No, that does not work. It is not an effective strategy. Sorry, you want to jump in. Go ahead.
I was just going to extend the point. Like, I do feel like Draymond, Kerr, and Steph have one model of making it in the NBA. And that's the model all three of them went through, which is the underdog, late round pick, fall in the draft, second rounder, like Kerr role player, where you have to hustle and dive. And, that's why they like Podzinski's bouncing hair. He looks like he's hustling all the time, even though he's not. Like, and so then they see a blue chip athlete, somebody like Jonathan Kaminga, not run 1,000% of all time, not just out there geese.
One possession, by the way, for like one possession out of 100.
I'm just saying, like, but that's fine. But to your point is, there's more than one route to success in the NBA. And for you not to be able to think like, oh, maybe this kid actually needs to settle into a game for a little bit and he actually does start hustling.
Well, and that leads, Armando, to, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I was just going to say before I lose this train of thought, that leads to the second point about what I learned in a teaching position. And again, it's not something I learned so much as it was just reinforced. And correct me if I'm wrong in this. You can't excel at anything. You can't master anything by sitting and watching. Practically impossible, dude. Like, the only way you're ever going to get good at a craft is by doing it, by practicing, by gaining experience, learning from mistakes. And what I'm trying to say here is, obviously, is you got to play these kids. Like, they're never going to develop if you're not giving them minutes, and they're not consistent minutes so they can learn from their mistakes. The fact that Jonathan Kaminga is 18th, 1-8 in his draft class. He was selected 7th, projected top 5, and there's no chance in hell he's anywhere near the 18th best player in his draft class, yet he's 18th in minutes per game. So, and again, this is why the fact that despite everything that this kid's gone through, and for him to be put in a position in the postseason where he was getting those DNPs, suddenly is thrust into the lineup as a starter when Jimmy Butler goes down with that injury. And then when Steph goes down, he's suddenly now your leading scorer, lighting up Minnesota, getting praise from that team in the middle of a postseason run. And your response to all that is 2 years, $45 million team option, second year. We're going to rescind your no trade clause that the CBA grants to players in your position. Like this, the low ball thing. Like, I don't get any of this. Move on from the kid. Trade him, end this, or put your faith in the kid. Pay him what a salary comparable to what other players in his draft class have made. Give him a role that is consistent. I think that's all he wants, is just consistency. I'm confident that if you told Kaminga, you're not going to be a starter, but we're going to give you 30 minutes a night guaranteed, and you're going to be in the closing lineup, I think he'd be happy. I don't think this is as much about him being a starter as it is about him having a role, being a part of something bigger than how he's been treated so far. And some people will interpret that as Kaminga being greedy. And again, if that's the case, trade him. He doesn't even want to be here anymore. Move on. Like, this is horrible mismanagement by the Warriors organization. This is embarrassing, the point we're at now. And again, said it before, said again, a huge part of the problem is Steve Kerr and the trust that they've ingrained in someone who has just exhibited with these clips we played that has no interest in coaching young players and developing young players. He admits he doesn't know how to do it. He has no interest in it. It's insanity. Joe, what are you doing? And that leads to our next discussion. And I know you got to go here soon. I
can say a little longer. It's all good.
Kirk Lacob, Joe Lacob's son, faced a lot of nepotism charges because Kirk Lacob, who, side note, was a walk-on basketball player at Stanford. And I think that's important because walk-ons don't make D1 programs unless they have some skills, unless they know how to play basketball. So at least Kirk Lacob has a semblance of the game itself, which I think is important and says a hell of a lot more than most of the other execs and owners and especially owners' sons. With all that said, Joe Lacob was not a beneficiary of nepotism. He had relatively humble roots. I'm sure some people can push back on that, but compared to most other NBA owners, he's had a bit of a humble upbringing. And he said this publicly in interviews that he feels for his son being in this position because he remembers himself growing up seeing other rich people's kids getting these positions unfairly simply because of relationships and being a part of a family. So Joe has acknowledged this publicly repeatedly, that Kirk was in a rather precarious position because of the nepotism angle. Nonetheless, Kirk Lacob was the assistant GM. He was directly under Mike Dunleavy Jr., steps down. He decides, I'm out, and he leaves without any backup plan. His dad said in regards to the decision that he has balls to do that. And he did an exit interview with Kawakami, and you had a chance to listen to that. Anything stick out to you from that? Because this is fascinating to me that someone in his position, and I imagine Joe was really bummed to learn that his son said, I'm out. Like, I can't, like, I'm guessing a lot of this was for him to have family around him and to have his son say, I'm good on this. That's a little nutty to me. Did you hear anything interesting in the interview?
The only thing I heard that was a lot of angst around whether there's enough, if it's all yes men around Joe Lacob and Mike Dunleavy, or whether there's enough people who have the freedom to disagree. And there was a lot of angst over whether that was the case, whether that shifted after Bob Myers, whether this guy leaving, this young kid leaving, is going to add to the yes men or take away from the yes men. And what I gathered was that Mike Dunleavy, from the whole discussion, Mike Dunleavy is kind of more in line with Steve Kerr than Bob Myers was.
And I said Kirk, I meant Kent. I apologize. Yeah. I think Kent was the one who stepped down. There's two sons, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the only thing I found interesting. So, like, who they hire in his place is going to be really interesting. Is it going to be an outsider? Or are they going to promote Jerry West's son or something like that? Like, who is the person that is going to be the voice next? Who's next up? Because the oldest child is going to be the owner in the future. That guy's not leaving anywhere. He's
okay. So that's Kirk. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is Kent. So there's two boys.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I thought there was one boy and a bunch of daughters. Okay. So so this isn't as big of an earth-shaking move as I had originally. Okay. My bad. I'm sorry for not being well-versed on the owners and the number of kids he has. Forgive me for that. Okay. So this is Kent. Is it still as big of a deal then?
No, but
okay. All right.
I think it will matter, like, for the next iteration of this team. Like, that guy's not going away. He's coming back, and then who they hire back is important. Who in his place?
So Kirk is the one that's still the assistant GM, and then Kent his position was executive director of team development. Okay. I apologize. I didn't even know there were two of them. Jesus Christ. All right. So then forget that whole segment. Then there's nothing big there. But he did do an interview with Plus Minus, and was it a boring interview then? I mean, I'm suddenly not interested at all.
Oh, no, they were just talking more philosophically about privileged, and it's a little weird that this is getting such highlight. Like, why is he putting himself out there like this? I don't know. Something happened. Like, it's not just him wanting to strike out on his own. That's the frame they want to put out, the narrative they're putting out there.
Alrighty. So then, forget that then. I thought that was a somewhat of a big deal, but Kirk would have been the big deal. Kent, who's basically the Jan of the family, apparently, I'm being facetious saying that, is moving on. My guess is the public side of this is maybe him wanting other teams and other potential opportunities to notice that he's a free agent. That would be my guess for the publicity seeking decision here. The NBA schedule came out. I've never been big on highlighting that. The only variation we usually get when it comes to schedules in terms of a comparison with other teams, because unlike the NFL, you don't have an even plate across the board, right? Like in the NFL, you play 4 games against one other division in your own conference, 4 games against one other division in the other conference. You play the other 3 teams in your own division twice, and then strength of schedule dictates, I think, the remaining opponents. So there's like a formula there. In basketball, I correct me if I'm wrong on this, but to the best of my knowledge, you're playing all the same. You play every Eastern Conference team once on the road, once at home, and then you have this even distribution across your own conference. I could understand if you're, let's say, in the Pacific Division, like the Warriors are, then maybe your strength of schedule is going to be a little more difficult than someone, say, in the South Division, is it the Southwest Division, whatever that's called. And maybe I'm wrong on that. I'm just trying to provide an example here. My point is, a couple things stuck out to me. One was the 15 back-to-backs. Last year, the Warriors led the NBA in back-to-backs, felt a little punitive. I don't understand that. And I asked Grok, Twitter's AI, which team in the NBA has the most back-to-backs. Got no answer. Grok could not answer that for me. So I don't know who has the most back-to-backs. I guess I'm going to have to do that research by hand, and I will do that soon on a day when I feel like it. My point is, from your perspective, Armando, outside of a couple of weird late starts, I think the Warriors have a couple home games that start at like 8 or 8:30. Which is a little funky. They're trying to make this work for national broadcast 7 days a week, which that I love. We're literally going to be getting a nationally televised broadcast 7 days a week. That to me is fantastic news. And here, I'll show you this graphic real quick just to give you some perspective on what to expect literally any day of the week. Sunday, you get nationally televised games. Excuse me, on ABC, NBC and Peacock. And ABC, by the way, that's important because that means you're going to get the Inside the NBA crew. Same for ESPN, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. Monday, Peacock. Tuesday, NBC and Peacock. Wednesday, ESPN. Thursday, Prime. Friday, Prime and ESPN. Saturday, Prime and ABC. I don't know if ABC is going to have Charles Barkley, Ernie Johnson, all those guys, or if it's just going to be the ESPN broadcast. But we're getting it 7 days a week. The Warriors are going to have a couple of 8 to 8:30 start times for home games. That's late as F-bomb. 15 back-to-backs. I noticed on the schedule there were 2 baseball series type games, meaning on 2 separate occasions, they're going to be on the road playing back-to-back games against the opposition. I love that, by the way. I wish the NBA would do more of that. I think it would help solve a lot of the scheduling issues. Did anything stick out to you, though, from the schedule as we start to wrap it up here?
Yeah, man. Like those back-to-backs plus the nationally televised games, like 35 of them or whatever, it makes me real worried for the Warriors. I think there's a lot of thoughts out there about the East being down and the East not like being that good, and those are easy wins. But like, to be honest, if you've been watching the Warriors the last 3 seasons of regular ball, like no win is easy for them. That every game, if it's in Detroit on a Tuesday night, if it's in Utah Jazz on a Thursday night, like it's the Super Bowl when Steph Curry comes to town. That's the highest ticket in whatever city it is. The rich people come out to sit sideline. Like the little kids come out. It's like the Super Bowl, and so teams play their hardest against the Warriors, and they play their hardest on national TV. And so that's fine. It's kind of always been that way. That is why it's harder for us in the regular season. But like this 37 and 36-year-old and Draymond Green, I mean, how many of those games are they going to be up for? Like Jimmy Butler has chilled on the Miami Heat for 5 regular seasons straight. Just not trying very hard. Cruise control. It ain't Jimmy Buckets. It's Jimmy Cruise Control. And is he going to be able to do that on the Warriors this year? I am highly skeptical. So that's what the
Jimmy Cruise Control. And what you just said, by the way, is why Jonathan Kaminga is so damn important. Because like you said, man, your 3 best players are turning 38, 36, 36. You've got 15 back-to-backs. In the chat, AC saying wasn't a 16 back-to-backs. I think that was last year. And again, the Warriors led the NBA in that category. Make that make sense in terms of the schedule being fair. But they got 15 back-to-backs. If there's any sense of intelligence with the Warriors decision makers, they're not going to play Steph, Dre, and Jimmy on those back-to-backs, right? They're only going to play 1 game. There is a role, a very important role for Jonathan Kaminga this year, and I don't understand why you're playing games with him when you need him this badly, because you either have to have him if you want to have a shot this year, or you got to swap him for someone that could bring equal value short-term, right, in terms of helping you now. Your 3 best players are old as F. Like, what are you doing? Like, how is this making sense in terms of making – like, Kaminga is important in all this. Like, I have no clue what's going on in the minds of the Warriors front office right now, except that for whatever reason, they want all this flexibility for next offseason, which Jimmy Butler will still be under contract for. It'll be the final year of his contract. Stephen Curry, it'll be the final year of his contract. Draymond Green, it'll be the final year of his contract. And I don't know what surprise Lacob thinks he can add to that. I like, there's something going on there. I don't know if it's Giannis. If it's LeBron, I think that's dumb, because you're basically forming a geriatric group that is not going to win a champion. Like, if you think in your mind, LeBron at 42, Steph at 39 is going to lead a team to a title, you really are delusional. Like, you really just are lost. And that's the owner of the Warriors. So, and that's where we're at. I don't know what the plan is. I don't know what they're looking ahead to next offseason that they think they have a real shot at. But that's what all this is for. That's why they're playing around with Jonathan Kaminga and his money. And like the great Big Worm said in Friday, playing with my money is like playing with my emotions. And you're playing right now with Jonathan Kaminga's emotions. I don't get it. You need him this season. This might be Stephen Curry's final year in his prime. I don't get any of this. Armando, do you?
I think, well, two reactions. I think one, like to say that they're going to need him in the back-to-backs when the stars aren't playing. Like when I look at how they actually coached the X's and O's in those Minnesota games, like people like to say, oh, Kaminga scored all these points against Minnesota, but they didn't win nothing, so that's on him. If you who actually watched those games, like, dude, the dude was dropping 25 a game without any play calls for him whatsoever. He was standing in the corner while Podemski was pivoting to nowhere and being guarded, like the defender's like, what is this little kid doing? And, I'm just saying that's going to happen next year in the back-to-backs when it's Kaminga 30 minutes a game. Okay, here's 20 shots a night, but go stand in the corner. Oh, you're not being aggressive enough, but also we're not calling any kind of plays for you. Like there's no innovation in the system. And, to your point about getting Horford, is 39-year-old Horford actually better than playing Trace Jackson Davis? Like, think about it.
If he's hitting if he's spacing the floor like they hope, yes. But it's a hell of a dude. Armando, I don't understand the flippancy with the risk factor here. He's 39. He is right now, or he's about to. I know he's going to enter the season as a 39-year-old. And that's what you're putting all your hopes on? Like that's a little nutty to me, I think.
Dude, I think to connect it to the Kaminga contract situation, like why not just pay Kaminga, related to the Horford situation.
Exactly.
They they want to be able to fill out the 14th and 15th roster slots with more, like they want to be able to have the option to sign a 15th guy and not keep that roster spot open. Like that's kind of the difference in the Warriors offer 21.5 and probably the max they could offer Kaminga would be 25 something and still be able to offer Horford the mid-level.
Correct. Yeah, I think that's the number for next year that they can go above for Kaminga's 25
right.
million.
Except this side, who is offering Al Horford the mid-level exception? So
you're right. But my understanding is Horford, if you don't offer him the mid-level exception, he just retires.
That's what I'm saying. So what? So what?
Well, I think clearly the Warriors want him, and I hear what you're saying too. But look,
I guess I just want to make this point. Final point. Like this,
and we're done after this. Yeah,
their shrewd opinion, their shrewd business. We're like, this is all capitalism, business. Dollars. We're not paying
the market. The market dictates what you make.
Yeah, we're not paying a second more, but. They overpaid for Jimmy Butler. They're about to overpay for Horford. Like Jimmy Butler, they were trying to trade Jimmy Butler for 2 years, and no one was going to give him no contract extension for $54 million. There's no market for Jimmy Butler. We have a 54-year-old, $54 million player that no one else would give him that contract, and he's chilling. So, like, this is all connected. So I don't know this shrewd business, that non-shrewd business deal is affecting this summer. And I don't see it. It's not light years to me.
Look, Big Perm said it best when it comes to negotiations and more specifically money.
Playing with my money is like playing with my emotions.
I mean, look, and he spin facts, man. That's how we roll in life. And I don't understand this Kaminga thing. Just pay him. Like what are you doing? Like he's leaning toward the qualifying offer. And again, I've never in my life, to the best of my recollection, I've ever seen a fifth-year player take the qualifying offer. It's ridiculous that it's gone to this point. And if he accepts that, you just lose him. Like where is the asset management here? You essentially, the way this is going, you essentially traded, and someone on Twitter eloquently put it this way, and I'm copying their idea here, but you essentially traded Andrew Wiggins and Jonathan Kaminga for Jimmy Butler. That's what this is turning into. And Jimmy Butler is turning 36. Dude is on cruise control most of the regular season. I love Jimmy Butler. I'm stoked he's on the team, and I know not everyone agrees with that. I love that decision. But if you had told me it was for Wiggins and Kaminga, I would have had some second thoughts. I would not have been supportive. And that's what this is turning into. And again, this is where I don't understand, going back to Steve Kerr, why there is no accountability for his decisions, which at the beginning was amazing because he had the easiest roster to manage. When he needed to actually help with developing players and playing the right players, he's failing year after year after year. And now, because of his decisions, this is a Steve Kerr operation, man. There's only one person who decided the team's third leading scorer does not fit, and we're going to start DNPing him going into the postseason. One person made that decision, Steve Kerr. And these decisions are having some damn awful negative ramifications now. And here we are. It's August 15th, and we still just have 9 players on a roster. It's insane. The schedule's out, and the Warriors have 9 players on their roster. The schedule released one last piece of information that I thought was pertinent. Training camps start September 29th. If this thing drags to then, Madon, dude. Like, just what the hell is going on here? Yeah, and Jason Lewis, I do remember that Steve Kerr threw Game 5 of that first round series against the Rockets, literally just gave it away so he could play Stephen Curry 43 minutes in Game 7 so he could have his hamstring pop in Game 1 of the next series. This guy is mismanaging things over and over, and you have an owner just sitting back going, hey, man, the fans aren't booing. The fans are buying tickets. Things are copacetic. Everything's fine. Everything's great. Start booing out there, please. Like, that's the only way we're going to see change, is if the fans start to boo. But he's got that hoity-toity, uppity, elitist crowd going now, and I think they care more about the quality of the wine being delivered to them and the cheese that accompanies that wine than they do about the product on the court. And I'm done. Any final thoughts?
2015 Kobe Bryant retirement tour. We are in that era. That is where we're at. It is just getting it. It's just selling tickets. Keep cashing the checks, baby. You know, we need to get on Jimmy Butler one day because I feel like we disagree a little bit. So it would be a good conversation. I want to talk about that because, I'll just preface, like, we talk about Bradley Beal's buyout and the big buyout of the Bucks. This stuff goes south fast with old players. I seen Carmelo Anthony on the Oklahoma City Thunder. Things happen quick. So, like, I saw what opposing teams did to Jimmy Butler in the playoffs. They stopped double teaming him, which is what they were doing in the regular season. Double teaming Jimmy the moment he touched the ball, and it was all good. So let's see what happens after that playoffs that we just saw. I mean, things change fast in the NBA. So
they do.
Is it going to be pass, find Quentin Post for a Chuck 3? Is that the offense? So let's see what happens.
We went this entire show. I know you got to run, but without giving love to the sponsors, my apologies. We will not bill you for this one today. Just kept rolling the whole time. Want to give some love real fast to Decades Official. Fantastic. I'll be really fast here. I know you got to run. Decades Official, great cover band. Go to decadesofficial.com to check them out. Again, if you're thinking of a wedding, an anniversary, a birthday, maybe a good old-fashioned backyard rager, dude, Eddie D hired this band to play his private event in Montana. That's all you need to know. They are awesome, and they're available for you. And please support the program by booking them. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I will come to the party if you book Decades. I will be a guest at that event as long as it's within reasonable travel distance, of course. Thank you again to Decades Official. Email Kyle@atomicmusicgroup.com. Again, Kyle@atomicmusicgroup.com. If you want to book them, mention our show, you'll get a discount. Thank you to Decades, as always, for supporting our program. And thanks to FanDuel, our new sponsor. You could bet on a whole lot there now with the Warriors. Even though they only have 9 players on their roster, the line is set for the opening night game in LA. The Warriors are taking on the Lakers on opening night. It's a battle of the old guys, Steph and LeBron. So you can bet on it if you feel strongly. You can also bet on win totals. I think the Warriors right now are in the third. I can't remember if they're in the 35 to 40 or 40 to 45 range, but that is available right now. And you have a strong opinion on that, right?
On the Warriors?
And on the over-under.
The under.
Yeah, the under.
We could live telecast me betting $1,000 on the under this year. I will be in Nevada doing that bet.
Hey now. Well, there you go. All right. Thanks, everyone. Hope you have a nice weekend. If anything happens, we'll go live immediately. Armando, one more time, plug away everything going on with you. You've got a great column. It's called Sprewell Was Right, which I think symbolizes just how long you've been following the Warriors. What have you got going on in life, man? Promote away.
Dude, I don't know what we're going to write about next, but just all summer we've been doing never choose the coach over the player. That's a foundational truth if you're a Warriors fan, a real Warriors fan.
Fine. I can't think of a single situation where I would have picked the coach of the player. I mean, provided the player is like a star, right? I mean, we're not, if they're like a Dennis Rodman type, look, A, you're a role player, B, you're somewhat crazy. Like if Draymond and Steve Kerr had a riff, and the team picked Steve Kerr over Draymond, I don't know if, you'd get a lot of people upset about that. We're talking about the stars here. We're talking about impact players, maybe future stars in this instance as well. And I can't think of a single instance where, like, in hindsight, picking the coach was the right decision. Like, I can't. Can you?
They might this year, because if Steve Kerr's not going to be the scapegoat this year, who do you think it will be? It'll be Draymond. Like, I mean, just you got to start lining up the Draymond trades. Like, this thing could go south real quick.
Let's save that for another show. Side note, Tala Ahmed in the chat saying, I made a career out of bashing Kerr. No, I haven't. I mean, look.
I have. I'll keep doing it.
What do you want me to do? Do you want me to just turn the other cheek and pretend that this guy is perfect? Do you want, like, disingenuous content? Do you want me to have pom-poms? Is that what you're looking for? Like we're grounded in reality here, Ahmed. Okay, like, I'm sorry that we're not giving you a pro Warriors propaganda 24/7. This is a program where we're spinning truth. We're trying to, at least. And the truth of the matter is, Steve Kerr he's made a lot of mistakes, and I think he's doing far more harm than good at this point. I don't know how you can argue otherwise, but that's just me. Look at the Evanistics loves you, dude. Look at the love for you, Armando. You get a lot of praise here, man. Jordy Beans, appreciate you as well. Appreciate all of you, even those of you that shed a little criticism and hate on us. That's okay, man. It's part of the program. So, are we done? Is that it? You good?
That's it, man. That was fun. Thank you.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye.